Charlie Dickens, chapter 36, the ending, and chapter 37. Oh, sugar. There was hope, he thought, and in a panic he ran to the phone in the hallway, and he dialed for the ambulance with shaking fingers. They seemed to take an eternity, but in reality it was only a few minutes. Chapter 37, Hospital. Charlie found himself winding round the streets, with the ambulance blaring and its lights flashing like fireworks. He could see his mum covered in a big red blanket, and he had to admit that he was very scared. He thought of Tinker, but there was no one for him to turn to at that moment, so in desperation, he felt in his inside pocket and he pulled out a wrinkled up copy of a Spider-Man comic, and he let himself sink into its colourful pages. And the wailing sirens and the colourful lights disappeared, and for a few moments he forgot about the tears on his cheeks and the sight of his mum on the stretcher. It wasn't long before reality kicked open the doors, and Charlie found himself sitting in the hospital, surrounded by a lot of miserable-looking people. A kindly young-looking nurse put her hand on his shoulder, and she handed him a weak-looking cup of tea. Charlie didn't mind, and he slowly sipped from the plastic cup and hoped it would make him feel better. "Don't worry," the caring nurse said. "Your mum is in good hands. She'll be okay," and she smiled at Charlie as she ruffled his bright ginger hair, and he gave him a soft, gentle smile. And he gave her a soft, gentle smile, and Charlie chose to believe her. He was too scared to think of the alternative. "We've contacted your Uncle Keith," she said, and he will be here to stay with you and help you." Charlie doubted that. "Are you hungry?" she asked. Charlie thought for a moment, and then he said, "Only for chocolate." The nurse laughed, and she walked away, saying, "I'll see what I can do." Charlie watched the hands of the clock moving as if they were covered in webbing, and each second seemed like a minute. And he wondered how his mum was getting on, and he could feel his lip begin to quiver, but he didn't care. He was startled by a heavy hand on his shoulder. Charlie turned round to see his Uncle Keith standing next to him. Charlie didn't like his uncle. He only turned up when he had gambled all of his money away, or that he was lonely at Christmas, and he wanted some Christmas pudding. His mum called Keith a waster, but Charlie knew he had to hold his tongue, which came naturally to him as he was raised to be polite. Keith got a coffee from the machine, and when he came back he tried to sound concerned about Charlie's mum, but with all of the betting receipts falling out of his pockets and his feet tapping impatiently on the floor, it was impossible for Charlie to believe him. Charlie was frantic with worry, and it was difficult for him to concentrate on anything else. Keith tried to put on a kind face on things, but his mask was already beginning to slip. "I'm hungry," he said. Is there a fish and chip shop round here?" he asked insensitively. Charlie was amazed that he was thinking about food in such a serious situation. "I think so," he managed to mumble, holding back the tears. "Let's go," said Keith, making a big show of holding hands. Charlie had no choice but to walk out with him. "Don't worry," he said. "Your mum's asleep. She won't know we're gone," he said. Although true, Charlie wanted to stay. He felt that he owed his mum that much.